I think when advisors have clients that are going through the disorientation that's related to changes in whether it's kind of say administration or applied technology, it's wisest to start with empathy. It makes a lot of sense for a client to experience a sense of dissociation if we have the people who are holding the reins of institutional power are flexing them in ways that might impact their sense of social contract or infrastructure, all of the landscape in which they live their lives, their ability to shape their kind of individual engagement with community. So having empathy for that disorientation is probably the first thing to do. Following that, I think it makes sense to support them in moving through that disorientation, since no good decisions really come from being suspended in that state. Something I think about when I'm personally kind of moving through that disorientation is something Roman Rolland said about the idea of having pessimism of intellect, but optimism of the will. So this sort of concept that, when we apply that to a goals-based wealth management situation, that might be something along the lines of doing a more in-depth analysis of risk composure and reallocating based on what you find out in the new kind of landscape. I think beyond that, as far as emotional support for your client as they progress through this, is to maybe draw on the wisdom of a broader historical context to remember that things are up and down, and this is something that happens throughout history. Somebody that I really enjoy who's certainly gone through his fair share of historical disruption and turbulence was Antonio Gramsci, who talked about this idea of being sober and patient through these difficult times, and drawing on those sorts of reserves as we collect ourselves and move in a measured way towards the future. I think if advisors are hoping to make goals with their clients that are easier for their clients to stick to, they already have a wealth of information of how to approach that, but something I'd maybe recommend for a deeper dive would be to start looking more a little bit at the dynamism of their client. So when we think about making goals, we might think about what's important to the client, what kind of life do they want to live, and then how much money do they need to have that kind of life. I think what's missed in that sort of discovery is the dynamism of our interiority, that as human beings, we should be living, growing, changing. And so our goals might have a North Star, but we're more likely to go through periods of kind of weaving around towards that end point. So I think that's something that's important in doing that, is making sure that we recognize that and reflect that in a discovery process. So something that Freud mentioned that I really like is he talked about work and love being the cornerstones of humanness. And so when we think about that, we maybe want to change our question from what kind of life do you want to live and what constitutes a good life, and figure out how they want to engage with that life, what kind of work they consider to be good. And both of those things are dynamic and they're practices rather than just checkpoints.